to the disadvantage of everybody who swears by the idea of becoming a doctor, a teacher, a cop, a civil servant of any kind. To the great advantage of those who take our Commonwealth more seriously than anything else. Common sense is a great labor. Braunstein's friend Donald from the Flame Over Africa gang used to say that SpaceApe was building a nuclear weapon and he was going to use one on America. And he'd start howling, "You think I won't? You think I won't?" and singing Todd Rundgren songs. Many of us are being weaned away from the hard work of common sense by the truly asinine. All of us can see the half-wit nature of the so-called seriousness in a Michigan congressman saying that offering to provide Hiroshima and Nagasaki services to Israel over the children of Gaza. Something we're accustomed to rolling our eyes about. Oh, there's another dizzy congressman. Before you fall in with the very understandable sentiment that the Israeli political action teams have been too successful in buying our politicians and installing evil idiots. And that the chosen people charade of Zionism is a lampoon of Adolf Hitler that they just don't seem to be aware of. Takes a good deal of courage, foresight, and fortitude to hammer down some time for common sense instead of beating your head against the wall of these kinds of stereotypes. Not that they're fiction, and to understand what's really happening. Because if the tautology of excellence in elementary schools can provide the teaching tools to learn about the hidden history of the United States in a way that preserves our sanity, common sense, we'll all be the better for that. So let's begin by discussing what has really gone on and what the real questions of the situation could be. There's clearly a takeover going on in the United States power structure by the Zionist military enterprise, the Zionist military complex. It doesn't begin there. I don't really think it does begin there. If you look at the Vietnam War, Hollywood captured the White House with the Kennedy assassination and made those who served the state a special kind of American citizen. LBJ, John Wayne, Reagan, Nixon all endorsed the idea that black privilege was tied to service in Vietnam. there was a mutiny, or King was regarded as a mutiny in the NAACP because he took a stand for the poor people of Vietnam who America didn't understand and were subjecting to hatreds that were similar to what he was being subjected to. That ghoulish black involvement with American fascism, the partnership that's developed in the NAACP with the Veterans Administration, is an ongoing problem when we talk about the AIDS attack. They provided the drama club services, the British Rock. There was a huge Israeli force behind it, so much so that the Zionists wrote the script, the Texas school book about it. And the blacks of Seattle have been the enforcers of the murderous enterprise. But when you think about it, it wasn't just the Israelis, it was the British. The fact that they chose me from Eisenhower's Kennedy crowd. You may think, oh, that's crossing party lines, they were rivals. That's not true. If you want to delve into the JFK situation, look at Barry Goldwater being informed that Kennedy had died. He cries like a baby. He can barely contain it. Barry Goldwater was an arch conservative rival who loved JFK. I personally think J. Edgar Hoover was just embarrassed. The real perpetrators were in high command. Don't get me wrong. J. Edgar Hoover did follow the movements of Adolf Hitler across South America. Don't get me wrong. J. Edgar Hoover knew a lot more than he said, but I feel he was probably just embarrassed. Barry Goldwater was devastated. So the red line that exists in American politics isn't between Eisenhower and JFK. And it isn't between Biden and Trump. It's between Eisenhower and JFK and Biden and Trump. The red line is between these two forces, Eisenhower and JFK, and then there's a red line on the other side of which is Biden and Trump. That's easy to see when you look at Obama, who was slapping five with Trump and had Biden as a vice president, who was violating international law in Syria and the laws of common sense by these strange new drone weapons of leading AI, and saying, I'm the black man, look at me, I'm Martin Luther King. And they used me to get away with it. The invisible, decoy. Getting back to Vietnam, one of the things that happened was that there was a struggle between schools and the draft board because you could get into school. So they started circulating drugs and saying, tune in and drop out. Because if you drop out, the draft board can get you. The Beatles were helping do this. The Beatles were always foreign policy for Britain. Michael Tive, the son of Ralph Tive, who introduced me to Milton Shapp, the governor of Pennsylvania, when I was 10 years old, told me that Ian Fleming was a council of people. And most of the things he's always told me are true. He looked a lot like that picture of Fripp at his 23rd birthday in Young Person's Guide to King Crimson in those days. And he had a goat tied up in his neighbor's backyard. One of the dogs bit me. The schools, my father was opposed to the Vietnam War and loved the schools. But Pope Karl, one of the proto-Russianized lieutenants of the extreme right wing of the Trumpetern galaxy, believed that real men were prepared to throw away their lives for the state. The Vietnam War serves this martyr complex, and they use this mentality to claim that the faith of the Muslims in Gaza is a will to martyrdom. Allah seems to understand what they're doing. Because on a very sincere level, there is a protective instinct in the human being. And of course, they wired this up. Now, how did they wire it up? If you think they're really clever, you should get it through your head that their apology is for Hitler. I'll show you how they operate. Franklin Graham says that humanism is the greatest threat to America since communism. My father wrote Humanizing the School. Sean Brooks, his dacoit, locks me out of a church and ends up making off with my girlfriend because they say that the nerve agent they forced on me has made me a danger to Latin American children. And, Seattle's good money bribery system says, let's hedge our bets. So they have corruption built into the system, right? And Hollywood comes flocking down with Martin Sheen. We're Catholic workers. You're out to protect the charity that the communist state built to educate young people in public schools. So from their point of view, humanism, which involves public schools and busing of black children, should be opposed because it's communism. But if it's going to exist, it should be identified as a charity, and they should be considered slave workers, Catholic workers. And he says, if you don't give all the proceeds of our farce and absurd theater to the outpours, we will stick you with the needle. And this is where Seattle's Green Party comes gyrating, even though these are the people who released the bombs. And even though it's an appalling refusal to pay somebody for their hard work. I go and talk to peers. They bust tables and they wait tables. And they can hear. They get tips. I wash dishes. I don't get any tips. I have to work full-time, two full-time jobs to keep up with my girlfriend who waits tables part-time. No, it's indecency not to pay me for my work because of this contraption that Martin Sheen built with Vince Imeni and Mr. Rogers and Sean Brooks with the Graham Foundation, Hollywood and Pittsburgh over a script that is a fraud. Now, in spy work, where Hollywood inundates you with farting smells and then has the guy showing his undies because he doesn't have a belt. And they poison you in the mouth and give you super distasteful candy and tell you maybe it has a magic bullet. It might help you. Trust or dishonesty is the watchword. Everywhere the U.S. government goes, whether it's Yemen or Russia or Timbuktu or the far ends of the earth, the hidden islands in the Pacific formerly owned by Marlon Brando, whether it's the tip of South America or New Guinea, whether it's Oman or Wilkinsburg, Pennsylvania, anywhere they go, their theme is trust or dishonesty. No, and then they pull a fast one that favors somebody nicely. They say, see, you can trust our dishonesty. And the left are too putrid perpetrators of the whole thing to credit in the least. They won't say one word about Gail Burstyn. She worked for the Beatles. So it's a hole in the wall gang from top to bottom and start to finish. You want to get your grip on it so it stops, right? So let's understand it. Pentagon is subordinate to Hollywood. Now, how did that happen? If the Pentagon has more common sense, if the Pentagon is aware that nuclear terrorism will poison the world, they can't be trusted. You have to find somebody like Donald Trump who can be trusted, who doesn't care about any of that stuff. So when you look at Pittsburgh, with the way the Green Party blocks and the German Green Party with their swastikas from ancestral Africa set up the Pussy Ball operation for the holy Japanese symbol of Lenin's honorary the Tojo warriors of Nubia, the Enodom of Obama. You find the King family and Jesse Jackson saying, a white death, how does that fit in the UW abacus? When there's a one-night stand with an Indian woman proximate to museum thieves. And they did find that the person they accused me of starting rumors about, who they claimed was a distinguished citizen, was robbing the museum for millions of dollars to help Cyril Wecht and Martin Sheen sell a libel about me that they constructed over a one-night stand. Ming-Na Wen made a movie called One Night Stand. And she made it out to look like it was the protest of Jeff and queers and Texas queers. Because Ronald Reagan, you will be blessed. Elton John promises you that. And Queerball questioned this, and David Bowie depicted me as a savant of martyrdom, the Jesus critter of humanism who's going to be tortured to death to prove Pope Carl's doctrine that there was no escape. So the people who control Hollywood came in above and beyond the statesmen. Alan Dulles and Ian Fleming got into it with J. Edgar Hoover because J. Edgar Hoover told them when they requested a 00 license to kill British citizens and American citizens in violation of law and due process on spy theories. He told them absolutely no. So they snuffed the President of the United States. And Ian Fleming comes from the Cecil Rhodes School. Cecil Rhodes, back in the days of D'Annunzio, when Mussolini and Disney were slapping five in Diaghilev's Grand Central Station. He had what seemed to be a utopian idea of taking back America for the British. And this is where the idea of using media to tell something that was totally untrue came from. Look at General Walker, the star witness for the Warren Commission. Look at the name Warren in the index. Robert Penn Warren wrote a fiction called All the King's Men, which anybody who tells you about Huey Long will say, read that, that's about Huey Long. Why would you read a fiction to tell you about a historic politician? But when you read the Warren report, you're getting the same gig. And their star witness was General Edwin Walker. He had just been let out in an insane asylum for threatening to kill JFK. Yes. He led the riots at the University of Mississippi that J. Edgar Hoover sent federal troops to escort James Meredith to. And the NAACP has these whiners who complain that JFK gets credit for LBJ's civil rights legislation. It was JFK's civil rights legislation. LBJ used JFK's death to push it through so he could get troops for the Vietnam War. They said, to Martin Luther King, you're a wimp. Pope Carl won't like you. The gun was in the possession of Michael Paine, yes. It was traced to Susan Klein. I mean, Klein's guns to Oswald, but it was kept in Michael Paine's house. Oswald went there once a week to visit his wife, not his rifle. Paine's cousin was on the United Fruit Corporation with Allen Dulles, the board of directors. Dulles forgave Hitler's campaign debts in 1933 as a representative for Schroeder Bank and ended up on the Warren Commission. John McCloy sat in Hitler's personal booth at the Munich Olympics and ended up on the Warren Commission. Melvin Belli, who represented Hermann Goring's widow, beamed down from Star Trek, where he was a guest star, and represented Jack Ruby, who had the same psychiatrist as Manson. Has this nearly same name as Mancine, who's in the Texas school book we found at Pitt, which these dizzy weirdos are just coagulating around because they say it's retrospective conversion to tell the truth. You're out for something. So they say corruption is built into the web. If you get paid for your work, you're not a charitable enterprise, and the public schools stand for something other than Catholic worker, and we're not going to have that. You're after a reputation, you want to get laid. Because a deaf kid wants to be paid for his work and have a private life. They're psychos. So you also have Gentleman Walker, who appears on a book called The Fascists in Britain in 1962 by Colin Cross. This is an index of Colin's double cross Colin. He's regarded as the most sinister, difficult, and dangerous racist in America. And the book is about Oswald Mosley. See the index system? So General Walker, Dulles, McCloy, and Melvin Belli are the people. All Adolf Hitler's sycophants are the people who you believe about the Kennedy assassination. Meanwhile, the tears of Barry Goldwater are the tears of somebody who can't be trusted because he's a Republican, like Eisenhower. They're whites, they're patriarchs. You can trust Biden and Trump. So the idea of having to provide 7 labors to Ringo Starr, who works with Netanyahu distributing virgins to the fans, is the app on the bayonet in Killing Fields, right? It's the penny that the dishwasher gets. And Seattle is so fucked up that these people who unionize to get a fair deal for baristas refuse to pay a deaf man for his work.